This video accompanies our article, The Truth About Tone Capacitors at ZEROCAPCABLE.com. We really enjoy busting guitar gear hype fest on the internet, and this one was a blast, so here we go. There are loads of videos online with well-meaning guitar players soldering various capacitors into their guitars and playing them one at a time and concluding that this or that capacitor is the holy grail of guitar tone. People claim that a certain type of dielectric or construction of capacitor affects the tone. They claim that the voltage rating of the capacitor affects the tone. They claim that the winding direction of the capacitor's foil affects noise pickup. They claim that unpolarized capacitors sound different when connected this way versus that. To test these claims, we purchased and tested 90 capacitors, 26 of them attached to a real guitar. And we disconnected the tone pot and the capacitor in the guitar so the stock parts would not color our results. To test the frequency responses, we used a patented instrument that we designed for capturing guitar pickup responses for our guitar pickup tone database, also available for free at ZEROCAPCABLE.com. This eliminated all subjective listening variables and boiled the entire judgment down to electrical engineering, not affected by what we had for breakfast or what we wanted to hear. The frequency responses are all displayed on the article's webpage at ZEROCAPCABLE.com. As for the capacitor dielectric types, we tested paper in oil, metallized polycarbonate, monolithic ceramic, metallized polypropylene, polyester, stacked metallized plastic, polyphenylene sulfide, paper in wax, and ceramic. Some of the capacitors we tested were new old stock, or just old capacitors such as the Sprague Vitamin Q, which are today going for ridiculous prices on eBay. Voltage ratings ranged up to 1600 volts. There are sound clips on the article's webpage, and we generated these using a stock sound clip digitally filtered through the resulting measured frequency responses. You can hear those at ZEROCAPCABLE.com. So what did we find? Well, the only tone determining factor for these tone capacitors is the actual capacitance value. The voltage rating of the capacitance was not a factor. The tolerance of the 0.022 microfarad capacitors varies from minus 15.5% to plus 12.7%. This includes the new and old capacitors. The frequency response varied in direct relation to the measured capacitance value, not the dielectric type, size, voltage rating, or any other factor. Dependency on capacitance value alone is exactly what any trained electrical engineer would expect. EEs select capacitors based on several properties, including the tolerance and dielectric type. For example, some radio circuits require tight tolerance capacitors, 5% or even 1%. Many radio circuits require capacitors that do not vary much over temperature, and capacitors marked with NP0 or COG dielectrics fit that requirement. Ceramic capacitors are in the main microphonic, but polyester caps are not. Polycarbonate capacitors are stable for use in audio oscillators. Ceramic capacitors have low resistive leakage and are stable over time. There are many factors, but in a guitar application, just about any modern capacitor works well. So why does this hype persist? Why do guitarists lay out as much as $50 for new old stock Vitamin Q capacitors? Here are some possibilities. The guitarists are simply falling prey to a musical community hype fest. Or the guitarists want to believe that a certain capacitor has a better sound, so they believe it. Or the capacitors they are testing have different values due to wide component tolerances, which we found in our testing. There's also the possibility that resistive leakage is occurring within the capacitors. This has the effect of sounding like a resistor has been added in parallel with a capacitor, and it will change the tone. Our conclusion is that two tone capacitors with the same measured capacitance value and low leakage yield the same tone regardless of rated voltage, size, dielectric, or price. So which tone capacitor do you choose? Well, I would stay away from ceramics because they can be microphonic. That might cause some strange feedback in your instrument. But the polyester or polycarbonate ones are good for guitar use and are reasonable size and cost. The polyester capacitors may even enhance your disco repertoire, but we'll leave that for another hype fest. Now, there are other considerations when using capacitors in a tube amp, which contains high voltages, and some capacitors are directional. They're called polarized capacitors. These issues are covered in the main article. Please see that at ZEROCAPCABLE.com. Also, the article discloses a great idea for a patentable capacitor with a replaceable dielectric, so be sure you read that at ZeroCapCable.com and claim your fortune. There you go. Hype Fest busted. But the party is still raging on eBay. You, however, are now too smart to waste any money there.